It's time to save, New Jersey. New Jersey's Clean Energy Program is your guide to rebates and incentives that can save hundreds, even thousands of dollars for businesses and residents throughout the state by making smarter energy choices. Start today with an energy assessment. We're lighting the way to a clean energy future. Join in at njcleanenergy.com or call 866-NJ-SMART.
Well, welcome everybody. Hi. So I'm Tanya Sulikowski. I am working at Merrill Creek Reservoir as of last Monday. I'm responsible for all things environmental and education there. And I'm also a National Geographic educator, and in 2017 I was selected by National Geographic as a Grosvenor Teacher Fellow and got to go to Alaska with them, which is pretty cool. And I'll talk more about the relevance of National Geographic to iNaturalist in a little bit, but basically National Geographic is one of the founding organizations that started to build the iNaturalist resource. So I've been doing some education for them related to iNaturalist for a couple of years. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about some of the ways that you can use iNaturalist to engage your learners. And we're going to go out and practice using it a little bit. Hopefully everybody did their homework and did at least 5 observations so you have a sense of what the app can do. And then we'll kind of regroup and talk about how maybe you had a light bulb or two go off during our hour together and have some ideas about how you might use it in your classroom. I first started using it 2 years ago. I got grant funding from National Geographic to run a teacher training workshop at the New Jersey School of Conservation. And it was a 5-day residential workshop focused on biodiversity. And the idea was to get the teachers out in the field, show them how scientists measure biodiversity, lots of different methods for different taxa. And then iNaturalist was kind of the underlying tool that we used to keep track of all of the observations that we were making. And we talked a lot in that workshop about engaging students and connecting them to nature, which is what probably all of us are here for, is to try to figure out how to do that a little bit better. And for those of us that have been in the field for a really long time, a lot of us have the philosophy of education that we want to get the screens out of their faces when we get them outside, right? Stop looking at the electronics and focus on the world around you. But what I've kind of settled on with my philosophy of education is that you're going to reach some kids through connecting them through music or art or, physical engagement with nature. Some kids are going to pick up a Newcomb's Wildflower Guide and go through that dichotomous key and be like, this is it, I'm going to be a botanist, it's so awesome. Some kids, you're going to reach them through technology. And so whatever the hook is, that's the goal, is to really get them to start looking and paying attention and then let nature do the rest, right? All that magic that's out there that we all know is out there, we got to get them to that starting point somewhere. So when we worked with the teachers that week, a lot of them were really excited to bring this back and use it in their classrooms, and they did. And actually 3 of my teachers from that workshop are here, which is so awesome. They're still pumped about environmental education. Then I got a second year of funding from Nat Geo to repeat that workshop. And COVID happened, and there were all kinds of consequences to that. And so we kind of pivoted and offered the workshop virtually, which was kind of a neat experience for me because I've been an educator for 25 years and really didn't have a whole lot of experience in virtual education. Most of us didn't before this year. And so it was kind of a cool opportunity to see how to use iNaturalist from a different perspective for me. So we had 30 teachers. I snagged this awesome young teacher from my workshop the year before who had all these great connections with classroom technology that we could integrate into the workshop. And we ran a BioBlitz with our teachers. And one of the things that we did that was different than the prior year was that we used the website a lot more. So you're going to see when you're out today, the app has a lot of utility. Most of it is based on making observations out in the field and then uploading them. You can look at other people's observations and you can look at other projects, but you can't do a lot of analysis through the app. And there's not a lot of ways for you to communicate with other users through the app. But if you get to the website part, it's like a whole different world. There's a awesome online forum where you can engage with other people that are using it. There's a teacher resource page. I'm going to send you guys to after the workshop's over today. For those of you who I don't have emails for, make sure you give me your emails before you leave because I'll include you on the email list. But I have an email list of some resources that you can use that'll be helpful. But there's a teacher resource page on the website. You can also get access to all the data. And it was kind of a big deal because just last week, iNaturalist reached their 50 millionth observation in the database. And so this is turning into a big thing. You know, there's a huge amount of data there that's at your fingertips. And if you're a classroom educator, you can do some really cool stuff with that data. So one of the things I focused on this year was learning how to use the back end of the website to generate all kinds of really neat information. And one of the projects that we gave the teachers was to come up with a species they were interested in and mine the data from iNaturalist. And you can basically export any data you want as an Excel spreadsheet. So like, you know, if I was interested in all the ruby-throated hummingbird sightings in New Jersey, I could pull that up. If I wanted to look at, you know, the first occurrence of them when they're making their northward migration, I could find that information. If I want to look at when they disappear in the fall, I can find that. And so you can connect that to Rutgers climate data. I mean, you can do some pretty high-level science with the data that you can pull from the website. It's also a cool opportunity to talk about bias in data because, you know, not everybody uses iNaturalist. It hasn't been around for that long. And so, you know, it is what it is, but there's a lot of really great stuff in there. Also, one of the points I want to make that's really important is iNaturalist was created by National Geographic and the California Academy of Natural Sciences, and the number one goal was to engage people and get them out and look at stuff. And so, you know, they weren't really at that time thinking about it as being a powerful research tool as it has become. So, you know, if you're doing a BioBlitz with like, you know, if like New Jersey Audubon's doing it or Cedar Run is doing it to kind of engage your membership with your families, you might look at the project you've created, which we're going to practice with our project today, but you might look at that and go, oh, there's a lot of junky observations in there. But it doesn't matter, because the idea is you just want to get people out and get them looking at stuff. But it has morphed into something else. Like, there's real scientific value to this. Someone did their PhD on squirrel distribution at universities across the United States, and they pulled all the data from iNaturalist. And I put an observation up last year of a winter firefly, this really cool little insect, and I got contacted by a researcher on the West Coast who was like, I'm working with this species. Next time you're out, can you collect a specimen and send it to me? And I put an observation up of a praying mantis egg case, and the guy who confirmed my observation actually wrote the identification guide for mantid egg cases. So like, there's all these people using it now. There's this like really cool world out there. And so, you know, there's a lot of possibilities for the usefulness, but again, just going back to the idea that it doesn't, you know, the idea is to create really good observations if you can, because there is a lot of scientific value, but really the main goal is just to get people looking for things. And one of the teachers in my workshop this past summer said, this workshop's so awesome, but now my dog walk is ruined because every morning I walk my dog for a half an hour around the block, and now it takes an hour because we keep stopping and looking at things. And I was like, that's it. That's like the best measure of success for my workshop, because this lady can't unsee all the great things that she's been seeing. And, you know, that tiny little world that she was looking at every morning looks so much bigger to her now. And so, you know, that's a great selling point for me. My husband is a high school environmental science teacher, and in the spring, he created a district-wide BioBlitz for his students. So he had like 800 kids in his district collecting data. And, you know, we would crack up at night, like sitting at the dinner table looking at some of the stuff the kids took pictures of, because they're kids and they did some wacky stuff. But they got some amazing stuff. One kid saw a mink, you know, I mean, like just, yeah, super awesome. So, you know, that's a great application if you're a classroom teacher, just to give the kids, you know, an opportunity to get out. And it doesn't have to be at a place like Duke Farms. I mean, you can collect observations in your backyard, which is what most of my husband's students were doing in the spring. They also were finding local parks that they didn't even know were there because they had this assignment, you know. And if you work with students that are in a more urban setting, they can make observations out their window if they need to. One of my teachers this past summer lived in Newark, and when we were doing our BioBlitz, she was like, I don't think I'm really going to find anything because I'm in Newark. She found so much stuff, spiders and ants and, pigeons and all kinds of things. And all of those living things are part of our system, and they have value. So, just because you're working with learners that might not have access to a beautiful piece of open space doesn't mean that it's not an applicable tool. So keep that in mind. So there's a lot of potential to use it in a lot of different ways, and I think I want to get us out and have us start practicing with it a little bit. So does anybody have any questions so far? Yes?
When I go into iNaturalist, it says that if you give the option to log into Facebook or Google or your email, is that a requirement in order to make sure your observations are seen by the group?
No. And just as a quick thing for a couple people that maybe haven't had the experience yet. So the basic process is you go out and you take a picture. And the picture that you're creating, it's not a picture to make a memory or capture something beautiful. It's to create a piece of scientific evidence, right? So the picture that you take is going to be uploaded to this database, and then about 10 suggested identifications pop up. And you'll see, based on other observations that have been nearby, it'll come up with suggestions. So a couple times, my husband Bruce and I were laughing because a kid would take a picture of a gull in his BioBlitz last year, and they would say, oh, it's an Icelandic gull. But, they weren't looking at the range map, they just picked the first thing that popped up. So sometimes it doesn't work, but based on the algorithms of that computer vision model, they'll give you suggestions for things that have already been identified close by. So, you have kind of a short list. And then you can click, there's a little blue eye, you can click on that and open it up, and it'll give you basically a link to the Wikipedia page for whatever that organism is. So you can read more about it, you can look at range maps. If you look at the website on iNaturalist, they have data points associated with every observation, like where it was recorded, the time it was recorded. You can look at maps. I mean, it's really there's a huge amount of information out there. So then you pick your observation and upload it. And you make your best guess. You might or might not be right. But then the other cool part about it is you can get your observation to research grade, which means if you make a good observation, there are people out there in the iNaturalist community waiting to verify that observation for you. And if I make an observation of an American toad and Mindy confirms my observation, then it becomes research grade because another person has agreed that it's a correct observation. So that kind of elevates it to the next level of data quality, basically. And then, if Jenny's really excited about toads and she's a toad researcher, she can also see my observation. She can confirm it too. So now I've got two people that confirm my observation. So you can really kind of do some cool stuff with it. You can, if you're interested in herps, if you're a real interested snake person, you can subscribe and get notifications anytime anybody sees a snake anywhere near you or in whatever geographic area you're interested in. So there's all kinds of really cool stuff you can do with it. But today we're gonna practice a little bit. We're going to take a walk. We'll get out of here. We'll walk over. There's a big tree right over at the start of one of the trails over there. So we're just going to meander over there, and then I'll give you guys a couple directions. You can leave up. Right? So if you think like a scientist, you want to know how many things are out there and where they are, right? So today, when we go out and start taking pictures, there's a lot of goldenrod in bloom right now, right? And the idea is that we wouldn't have Tyler and Chris take a picture of the same exact plant, but if it's the same individual plant. But if you take a picture of goldenrod right there and you take a picture of one there, that tells us something, right? I mean, that plant is occurring in two places that are pretty close to each other, but they're distinct individuals. So, don't limit your observations just because you've already got, the squirrel example. Some people are like, I'm not going to take a picture of squirrels. Squirrels are everywhere. But then somebody did their PhD research on squirrel distribution. So you don't know what kind of data is going to be valuable to the people that are out there looking at it. Good question. Any other questions so far? All right, so pull out your device. And if you open up iNaturalist, and here's my disclaimer, I'm an iPhone user, so if you have another device, I'm not sure how helpful I can be, but I can try. So what you're going to do is go into iNaturalist, and you are going to try to find the project that we created for today. And basically a project is think about the concept of a BioBlitz. You can create geographic boundaries, you can create boundaries in time, you can create boundaries based on the taxa that you're interested in collecting data for. So, you know, if Dorothy Smelton's doing her mushroom walk next session, she could do a BioBlitz that lasts for 1 hour at Duke Farms that only collects data on mushrooms. Today, the only parameter I have is that we're here at Duke Farms, and I made it all day long. So if you're here at Duke and you want to keep using iNaturalist, you can keep contributing to today's project, and all of our stuff will be there. So when you open up the iNaturalist app, there's a series of little icons at the bottom, and if you go to more, where I learned those 3 little dots are called a kebab. Did anybody know that? There's a good new virtual world fun fact for you.
Of an actual kebab,
like an actual kebab. Yep. So if you click on that little kebab, you should have 2 options that pop up. One says projects and one that says guides. If you go to projects and you look for projects that are nearby, you should see ANJEE BioBlitz. It's got a little monarch butterfly icon there. Okay. Once you're in there, join it. So there are little buttons up at the top, and it says join, news, about. And in news, if you're managing the project, if you're the one that creates this thing, you can, like when my husband was doing it with his kids, every day he would do a little summary, like, you know, Joe today found a brook trout and took a picture of it or whatever, and, you know, featured fish or whatever. So you can create little announcements in there, and then there's a little about button where you can kind of do a summary of the project that you've created. So far, I did a test run this morning and took that picture of white snakeroot, and Barb Spins, is that one of you? Barb, nice. Barb took a picture of St. John's wort this morning. And so we've got 2 observations already in our ANJEE BioBlitz for today. And you can see there's a little running tally up there. So far, neither one of them have been identified, which means they haven't been confirmed by anybody. So nobody has paid attention to our plants yet. Plants, I have to say, plants aren't as sexy as things like birds or herbs, so they don't get confirmed as quickly as some of the other things, but some people are out there waiting. So any observations that you make now today are going to be added to this project. So after we're gonna take pictures maybe for like 20 minutes or so we can check that tally again at the end and see how many we've got. But this is kind of cool. So if you work at a center and you've got places that have property boundaries, like for the school conservation, I created a BioBlitz that's ongoing. So I started the date at the first day iNaturalist was up and running, and then that BioBlitz is running in perpetuity. So it's kind of a cool way to do a species inventory of your property over a long period of time. All right, so we're going to go out and take some pictures, but before we do that, I want to ask you some questions. And photography is kind of my jam, so I actually just did a little video for National Geographic. It's not up on their website yet, but I'll send you guys a hyperlink to it. It's 9 minutes, and it's some tips and tricks for smartphone photography. Because again, like I said, you're not capturing a memory, you're not creating a beautiful image, you're collecting images that are contributing as a piece of scientific evidence. So when you're taking pictures, what are some things you should think about while you're out there shooting? How are you going to compose your pictures to make them useful?
Involve stems and a flower?
Yes, so as many parts as you can. And a cool thing about iNaturalist is when you upload an observation, you don't have to upload just one picture. So if I were taking a picture of this oak tree, what could I take pictures of to use as evidence?
The bark, the leaves, the structure.
Good. So close up of the bark, one leaf, maybe step back and take a picture of the whole silhouette of the tree. What else? Is there other evidence here?
The acorns.
The acorns on the ground, right? That's a really good piece of evidence. So you can upload at least 4 pictures, or maybe even 5 pictures of this tree as part of one observation. Really good. What else? What else should you think about?
Getting as close as you can.
Yes. So when you take pictures, birds are tough with your smartphone, right? So if you can get close enough to take a picture of a bird, don't upload the picture the way you have it. Try to crop it. Get all that background out, because when you crop your picture, it blows it up and you can see a lot more detail. So if you can't get really close, think about that. And also a good trick, any camera that you use has something called a working distance, which is the distance between the lens and the subject of your photo. For most smartphones, it's like 2 or 3 inches. And so practicing with that working distance helps you take a clear picture faster. Now, you know, if I'm taking a picture of a leaf, I'm not really in a hurry. But if you've got some kind of insect that you're trying to take a picture of that's going to leave, it'll be handy for you to know that working distance so you can get a clear picture faster. Any other things we should think about when we're taking pictures?
You really want to make sure your colors are correct as well. In certain birds, if the color looks distorted in the image, it will be false reading.
Good. And
lighting.
yes. So lighting is arguably the most important part of photography, right? Because that's how you're going to capture that color and detail in many cases. So if you're a photographer, most of the time you want the sun at your back, because that's going to shine light on the subject of your image, right? If you take a picture and the sun's in front of you, you're going to blast out most of what you're looking at in your photo. Anything else?
Being in focus.
Yes. There are so many blurry pictures on
That was
iNaturalist.
the worst thing with our BioBlitz.
Yep.
People were so far away and it was super fuzzy.
Yep. So here's my trick for that. Here's what I'd suggest. Take as many... We're being invaded by some kind of little creature. Look at that. So my suggestion is take as many pictures as you can on your camera roll on your smartphone. Don't take them through the app. And then you can go through and call out the ones that you don't like and then upload your bests to the iNaturalist app. Good one, Erin. That's like the most basic, like it should be in focus, right? But that escapes a lot of people. Anything else? All right, that's enough for us to get started with. So what we're going to do, we're just going to kind of slowly meander down this trail. And you guys can take pictures of whatever you want. I'll be around. I'll check in with you. I'll be looking over your shoulder.
Are you going to show us how to set up a project?
Yes. Well, I probably won't today because that's kind of next level. You have to have at least 50 confirmed observations in iNaturalist before you can set up a project.
Oh, wow.
Because they want you to demonstrate that you're not just some hack. You know, that's another way to manage data quality. But it's pretty easy. Once you have your 50 observations done, you go on the website and do it,
Okay.
and it's pretty easy to create.
There's no way to speed up the process of being confirmed. You just post stuff and then
Yep.
there are people...
If you go out, Jenny, if you went out today and made like 100 observations, by the end of the day, I'd say you'd have like 20 or 30 confirmed. So
okay.
people are out there looking,
Okay.
especially if it's more exciting stuff.
Right.
You know?
I've had 3 confirmed since 7 a.m.
Huh.
6 a.m., 7 a.m.
Good. All right, well, let's start practicing.
It'll show up, it'll say confirmed something?
Yeah, so let me show
Okay.
Kaiser is the guy that confirmed it, so he agreed with my idea. Yep. And usually a little bubble like that pops up on the
The one that
side.
has the number in it?
Yep.
Okay.
And it also might tell you, like, there's one that I didn't identify correctly.
And I'm like, I don't have time for my children.
Already? Look at you.
One I did this morning.
Oh, good.
Tiny salamander.
See, the herps, people are like,
Somebody... I did not...
what's that stuff?
When I take a picture, is there a way that I send it to the group and
You don't have to. Once you've joined that project,
Yes.
any observations that you make today that meet those parameters, like at Peak Farms in that time frame, are going to automatically end up in the project, so we'll all see them.
Okay, that's cool.
Even if you're like a photographer and you took pictures on like a real camera, you can go back and upload those pictures later, and if there's no geolocation associated with the image, you can physically
I did that. I had to do that for like 4 of them.
Oh, good.
That was
Okay.
fun too.
Yeah, it is cool. You have to like zoom in, play around with the map.
It starts
Yep.
like on West Africa. It starts, and then I had to zoom out and then go.
That's cool.
That was cool.
How you doing, Barb?
Great.
Good. All
No
our
trouble. So it's automatically pulling into our thing
project.
based
Yep.
on.
So another cool thing about iNaturalist is you can also upload audio files. Like I had 2 barred owls calling in my backyard the other night, and I recorded them. And you have to do it through the website, but you can upload audio files that people can play and confirm, which is kind of cool. So you can do that with amphibians or birds or insects or anything else that makes noise.
It's cool to see what everybody's already found.
Isn't it neat?
Looking, yeah.
There's a monarch if anybody wants to go chase it. Get it! Tyler, if you're being picky, you can go run after that monarch. I think it just landed in that goldenrod over there. What?
How far is this way?
Yeah, we don't measure off. There's a bee too. If anybody wants to.
There's a milkweed.
I think it's a honeybee. I think. It's a choice that you've made.
If you allow them to the app to find your location, took the picture of the caterpillar, but it's showing me pictures of the moths. Yeah, that's what happened to me. I did the black swallowtail caterpillar.
That's one of the things about this for caterpillars that doesn't work that well. So if you click on, there's usually like a little thing to get more information. Like if you click on the thing itself, you can scroll through pictures of what other people have seen. Usually they usually give you like a catalog of other people's observations, and oftentimes there's a picture of the caterpillar in there.
This time it's right anyway.
Right. If you go all the way up to the top, see where that picture is? Maybe, if you like scroll through, no, maybe there's only one picture of that one, but sometimes there'll be like a whole series of pictures of whatever organism it is.
Yeah.
And then they'll have a picture of the caterpillar. Yeah, that's a bummer about the caterpillar thing. I don't know why they do that.
Someone saw a spotted lanternfly.
Did you squish it?
I don't know. Somebody else saw it.
Erin saw it, and then she squished it. Yeah.
Take a picture of me with it.
There's a place in the app too where you can write in notes. So I told her to write the note, squished after photograph. Get some poison ivy. All right, everybody, we got about 3.
Yeah, honey locust. Honey locust.
All right, if everybody could start heading back, that would be awesome. Good to have this little speaker thing.
All day. It's helpful.
It is. Yeah, and you can give learners prompts. Go out and find something fuzzy, go out and find something yellow, go out and find something that makes you happy. Whatever. So if you wanted to add kind of another kid-friendly dimension to this, you could consider doing it that way. Any other thoughts?
My thought is that it's still hard to identify a goldenrod.
It is.
There's a lot of choices here, and I don't know which one to pick.
And you know what, Jenny? Sometimes I'm like a little bit of a plant nerd, and oftentimes I'll take pictures of what I wanna ID, and then I'll go back and play around with the field guides before I put in my observation identification. A lot of people use this pretty casually, and they'll walk around and just kind of upload the first identification that they get. I'm a little nerdier than that, and so I still want to learn, and I find that I remember things and retain them a whole lot better if I work a little harder to do it. And so, I have not abandoned use of the old paper field guides yet. But this is, like I said, another tool in our toolbox. Any other thoughts? Everybody excited to become an iNaturalist?
Yeah.
It does get a little bit addictive. And I will warn you that sometimes it'll ruin a hike. If you're out with other people that are not into this and you're like, wait, I need to get pictures of this stuff. It gets kind of annoying. So it's good to kind of pick the right audience when you're out uploading observations. But it definitely, even someone that's already really interested in nature and excited about being out, even knowing that you have the tool to do this, and it kind of taps into that collection part of our brains that gets a little crazy. So it's kind of fun to continue to add observations when you're out and you see something that's unusual.
I have a question.
Sure.
If you have a site say the Great Swamp Education Center, can you make that a group, and then anytime people are there they can join it and add stuff to it?
That's called a project. Yep.
A project, yeah.
Yep. So if you wanted to delineate the boundaries for a project, you can either do that using GIS files or you can hand delineate boundaries. So if you wanted to do something that doesn't include the whole Great Swamp but just right around the center, you can create your own custom boundary for that.
So that would be cool. Then, you know.
Start making observations, man. We got to get 50 verified observations.
Well, you might find what's kind of interesting too is, there's probably people that have already been using iNaturalist on your site. So if you guys create a project and, you set up the parameters so that the collection date started, 2 years ago or whatever, you're already probably going to have a whole bunch of observations in your project, which is kind of neat. Another thing I wanted to talk about just real quick, I use it from to track phenology of things. So I have a big native plant garden, and some of the things that are there are naturalized. They were already there when I moved in. Some things I planted myself. And you can also make notes. You can tag things as cultivated. So if you have a garden, you can mark that you planted that plant. Even if it's native, it's kind of good to know that it was something that you planted. But I might take picture of the columbine in my garden every year when it's flowering, even though it's the same exact plant, because then I can look back and see when that thing was blooming from year to year. So that's kind of another cool way to use it, to just sort of keep track personally of things that you're interested in. What are you going to say, Steph?
When you create a project, so you can have it open for observations for as long as you would like.
Yep.
You don't have to designate a closing time for observation.
Nope. When we set ours up at the School of Conservation, we said it was going to end 50 years. Who knows what the heck iNaturalist will look like 50 years from now. But yeah, you can just keep it open-ended.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you set up projects through the app or through the website?
Through the website.
Okay.
Yep. And I'll send you, like I said, I'll send you a handout after the workshop today with some helpful links on it. But if you sit down with the website and take some time to look at it, there's a lot of cool utility in there. All right. Does anybody? My phone is not getting service right now. Can anybody see where we are with our project?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in it.
57.
72 observations, 45 observers, 4 identifiers.
That's amazing, right? 75 observations like in the last half hour, which is pretty crazy. So you can rack these things up pretty quickly, and I think I was talking to Allison before. NJCF and New Jersey Audubon both did statewide bio blitzes this spring, and the NJCF one had a really, really high level of engagement. They had like 20-some thousand observations, and I think they did it for a whole month. And people all over the state were chiming in. So, it's pretty cool when you have a wide scope of geography like that. Any other questions or closing thoughts? Everybody into it?
Yeah.
You drink the punch?
Yeah.
All right. Don't abandon all your other wonderful ways of enjoying nature, but this is kind of another cool one to add. One other quick thing too. We used it with our younger staff. AmeriCorps, this might be good for you. So at the School of Conservation, we had 4 AmeriCorps members at the SOC, and a lot of them didn't have a lot of experience with natural history identification. And so, we trained our staff to do some interpretation of the more common things that were around. But this was a cool way for our new naturalists to kind of get a handle on how to identify things and keep track of what they had seen. So it's another good tool for training staff too.
Quick question, you mentioned with birds to crop the picture so that it expands. Can you do that within the iNaturalist app, or you do that at home on your computer?
Well, you can do it on your camera roll on your phone. So if you just take a picture like you normally would, you can go into the edit function and crop it there and then upload it into the iNaturalist app.
Okay, great. I've never done that.
Yeah, all these new skills you're learning. Awesome. All right, everybody, so we'll take kind of a slow walk back. You can keep taking pictures if you have other questions you want to ask. I'm here.
I've never tried.
Are we ready? Okay, so open the iNaturalist app.
I feel like
Here's a map, and this blue dot shows our location now. And all of these little dots around us show all the observations that were made, and different colors represent different
can you hear me with this thing? Is that what you guys are laughing at?
Jeff's doing a great job checking his...
Can you hear me?
Jeff, we're recording. And then you can look at your list of personal observations. So here I have 252. And then if there's a little bubble right there, it's next to the picture, and that tells us that they have been conferred as a research grade observation. And then today we created a project, which for some reason is not loading right now. All right, we'll search for it. So here's our BioBlitz that we conducted today in the workshop. And our total for today is 73 observations of 45 different species made by 13 different observers. And so far, 6 people have identified some of our observations. So pretty good snapshot of Duke Farm's biodiversity for just a very short amount of time. So.